But first of all, looking ahead at this stage in the year, you're looking, someone's just said about that idea of going from being solo, working with another teacher to going solo in that class, that idea of moving up to a full timetable. Let's think about planning ahead. What can people be doing now to sort of manage that transition to the next stage, whatever that stage might look for them? So I put 3 questions up there to just sort of think about our ideas. I've lost my screen of seeing everyone, so I need to find that. Where's that gone? But if anyone wants to jump in to think about what's a good thing to be doing at this stage.
Kate's giving lots of nodding.
Yes. So as a teacher, I think it's really important to start really straight away with developing relationships with children, because they're far more likely to want to do what you want them to do if you get that like bi-directionality and they want to work for you. So I would make sure I have community circles and really make sure I learn the children's names really quickly and have lots of things in place for them for when they start to help to support me to be able to do that.
Do you have any tips for learning names? Because that's something I always found really hard.
Well, I just have
And
it
it is
like
so
a game,
important.
and I say to the kids, right, I'm going to know your name by tomorrow, and I pick them off, their names, and then I just like challenge myself, and usually within about 24 hours, I can remember all their names, and they love that.
Just add to that, I would completely agree. I always found names hard, and so I would print off the class photos and cut them up and then use blue tack to stick them on a sheet of A3 as my seating plans. Especially as a secondary teacher, you could have hundreds of children, and some of them you might only see once a fortnight if you've got shared classes, which I always find really, really tricky. So that kind of blue tack photo approach means that I can more quickly, when I'm changing my seating plan, I can just quickly move them. And that kind of helps me keep track a little. And just to add to what Kate was saying, I completely agree about developing relationships. I try to identify students who might have had tricky times in the past with behaviour, and I try and catch them being good and make a positive call in the first 2 weeks. And just be like, okay, if another teacher has told me, watch out for that kid, I'm going to find an opportunity to call home positively and be the first teacher that parent hears from, that kid is like, oh, okay, it's worth really like making an effort in that lesson. So those are a few things that for me have really helped at the start of the year.
I really like that. That call home. I remember calling home for a student who I caught being good, and the parent was so delighted. It was a positive phone call. It completely shifted the balance of that relationship with the whole family, which actually benefited when I taught their sibling as well.
And also, if you then have to make a less positive call in the future, you've got a positive rapport to build on, and they know you're not just like adding to the negative vibes, but actually you will also share when there are positive things.
So thinking about that, what happens if it doesn't go to plan and you don't quite get that relationship off to a good start? If the first lesson, and this can happen, doesn't go as well as you want to, for whatever reasons, has anyone got any tips on what to do to recover from that situation?
I think just don't take it personally. I've had every class that's come up to me in the last 3 years, I've had children where they've been identified as being difficult or tricky. And in those transition days, they're the ones that are difficult to build the relationships with. And I think as long as you keep trying with them and let them know that you're going to keep trying, you're not going to give up and let them blend into the background and be a wallflower. Or I think in primary, it's easier than secondary because you see them every day, all day. But finding out what their interests are and building on that. So I had a little boy who's now been diagnosed with autism, but hadn't been when he came up to my class on transition day. And he just would not talk to me for the first transition afternoon. He wouldn't even like look me in the eye. So I spoke to a TA that had been with him previously, and they said, oh, he's really into space. So the next time he came up for a transition afternoon, I had all of my books out and I specifically kept hold of the space one and showed him. And all of a sudden he came alive and was talking to me about all the different planets. and then kind of realized that he was talking to me and stopped talking to me. But the next time he came in, he was that little bit less shy. And every time he came in, I would ask him if he had a new fact about space for me and things like that. So it's just try again, I think.
I would say definitely find out what they like, what they know, and definitely get to know those names. I was a supply teacher for 7 years. And straight away, the first thing you've got to do is learn those names. I did it as looking at the first 2 children and then saying their names out loud, and then seeing the 3rd child, going back to the 1st child, say the 1st, 2nd, 3rd child, do the 4th child, go and keep going back right round the room. The children loved it. Every single class I did it with, but get to know those difficult children. That is the key. And as you said, Jade, get to know what they like, and build that into your planning as well.
I do one we started this year. It's actually working very well, where you take a picture of the lab or the classroom you're in, and then we put like the names, so the students' text box along the seats, and the students write their names, and then we type it up, and we always have it on display so the students know if we change the seating plan as well, that where they are located. So it's quite easy to identify, and that also helps me to memorize the names as well, especially we've got like 22 or 25 students in the class. It's quite difficult. So that kind of helps, and it's working very well for us throughout the department. So that's something we started this year. So that's another way of remembering the names of the students, and also helps with parent-teachers meeting if it's anything early on, so that you know which student and which report you're talking about. So that's helpful.
Having secret student as well is really good. So you tell them that they're one person you're going to be watching all day. Make certain that it's not always the badly behaved ones, it's the good ones. But then at the end of the day, the secret student you reveal, and you tell them at least 3 things that you saw them doing really well that day. And they are thrilled. And that also goes home in a little note to let the parent know too. And they're very happy with it.
Yeah, adding to that, children love it if you pick them to be like the secret student, and you give them the power to decide who who deserves the recognition at the end of the lesson. And then you go to that child at the end of the lesson and they'll choose who it was. And it really encourages the children to behave really well, because they know one of their peers is going to pick one of them. So yeah, that's a top tip from me as well.